Recording in progress.
Okay. All right, we will call this meeting of the Ohio City Design Review Committee to order. Present, we have myself, Doug Wall, Disclosure, Marika Suarez-Clark, and I believe that's it, isn't it, Nate? Is anyone else?
Antonio Marinucci is here as well.
Oh, and Antonio Marinucci. All right, Nate, let's call the first item.
Thank you. 1908 West 44th is the first item on our agenda, and Ms. Courtney Hudson is here to present this project.
Thank you. I'm like a bad penny. I keep coming back. Okay, folks. A little more information. You had asked for more details. You approved the windows in the last meeting. Thank you for that. So let's move on to a reminder. This is 1908 West 44th. You had more questions about the porch and the siding. Two things on that. Then let's just a reminder. The next slide. Of a 1964 photo we found of a house, and I was quite taken with the knee wall concept here. And you again asked for more details. So with that said, let's go forward. Let's see. Let's keep going. That's just a reminder of what we had before. I'm sorry, I guess I put these out of order. I want to, I had mentioned before that I was going to, my intention was to use wood, and I've been discouraged by every lumberyard I've talked to from doing that. They can't guarantee any wood of any quality to last. So I would like to be using 5 1/4 inch hardy lap siding, the smooth side, with the kind of the traditional 4 and a bit inch reveal on it. I want to pull the color scheme in consultation with Tim Barrett from the greens on his house. And my intention is to use all the district, dark green for the lower portion, that pale green. It's got different names depending on when you find a swatch or a stab from it. The light green for that upper triangle would be around the attic. Let's scroll down to the next one. Some call it rockwood green, another place he calls it dark olive. And there is an attic window up there now. It turns out the old attic window is actually in the attic. And it's a style that we see around the neighborhood. Right now, it's just a piece of plexiglass. Without taking the siding off, I'm not gonna be able to shrink the size of that window. Carl or Doug, I think you brought that up in the last meeting. I need to get kind of a double pane glass window in there now, and I wanna get this restored. I actually know somebody who does some stained glass work that can get this to replace it. And that would be my intention, to put that in place. And we scroll down in terms of the detail on the exterior. So we just talked for a moment about colors that dark olive. So again, for the lower floors, lap siding. The knee wall also would like to be lap siding in that same color. Mentioned that part, and the knee wall 30-inch high. The whole porch is less than a foot off the ground. So we're going to stick with the 30-inch height for this in there, and then return to the 3 posts. So the 2 posts basically framing the doorway, and then the one on the far end, and we'll repair the horizontal beam and try to restore it to the detail that we can see on the front fascia of it. Try to restore that to what we see on the 1964 photo, as well as, if we go to the next slide, restoring the trim work on the top and bottom of the posts. And that's a side cut view of the column as well for that new wall in there as well. But also need to switch this to hardy siding as we repair the water damage around the place right now. Let me stop there. Any questions?
Committee members, any questions or comments? Somebody like to make a motion?
Sorry, was that the full presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have a couple of comments. One, I think the color palette, I don't have any issue with that. I think that looks nice. I question why you're building a knee wall and not just doing a railing like what's there today. I don't know that a knee wall is what this house historically would have had. So I think I just want to question that.
Go back. Keep going. Yeah, this is a 1964 photo we found from the Cleveland Library.
Right, so that was from the 60s, but I think originally the house probably would have had a railing.
Sorry, Doug, you're on mute.
Sorry, we discussed that at a fair amount of length the last time she was presented to us. I guess maybe you weren't.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, I was not.
So yes, I think the consensus was that we kind of preferred a railing, but she had strong feelings about the privacy of the knee wall, and it is, you know, probably not original, but it is part of the house's history. So I think we were generally, you know, okay with that to support her choice.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, Doug.
So would anyone have any more questions or would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Nate, please call the roll.
Thank you. Doug Wall.
Yes.
Marika Clark.
Yes.
And Tony Marducci.
Yes.
And Chris Lowy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yes, and Courtney just had a question about the window.
I have a secondary question for you on the windows. As I'm deep into demo, we're so far on track, but there's a little bit more to uncover. There's a fair bit of wood rot in the place. And if it gets too expensive or if the price of aluminum clad windows continues to rise, I'm going to have budgetary problems. And I wanted to see if there's a way to, for this committee's, I don't know, the conceptual review approval of switching to a less expensive and more timely, more available Fibrex window rather than the aluminum clad wood, which right now is 20 weeks out. And I don't know if the price from last week is going to hold. So if I've got another $10,000 in framing to do, I don't have an extra $10,000 to spend on windows. So I'm assuming, I've always assumed that vinyl was not something you wanted. Would a Fibrex, the Anderson window, be a manufacturer that you could live with? Obviously the same style, same historic proportions, same window trim going back in around it and getting that restored.
What about the color of the windows versus what you were proposing originally?
I still want chocolate brown, and the whole color scheme is kind of, the paint color scheme is based on that. Can I get them? Right now I'm 20 weeks out, and I don't know what the hurricane is going to do to availability around that. I don't want to switch to white, but I might have to. But let's start with sticking with brown, because they do make them in an antique bronze, dark brown color again. So that's certainly my first choice.
Well, I think if you can get the Fibrex windows in the correct color, we would not have a problem with that. I wouldn't anyway, but I think we would generally all have a problem switching to white. I don't think we would support that.
Understood. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next item, please, Nate.
Yes, so our next item is 4203 Franklin Boulevard. This was seen one time for the conceptual review. It's here for final review. And I believe Benjamin Rogers is here to speak to this. So Ben, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. I hope all of you are doing well. I just noticed that my son, who works for me, thought it would be funny to change the name to Ben the Man instead of You know, I usually have BR drafting up there, so it was not intended to be anything on that side of things. But anyways, so we went through this before it was been a couple of months. And we've kind of reevaluated where we're at. If you scroll down, the first few pages are just kind of giving a general idea of where it's at, some of the existing pictures. This page here, it kind of breaks down the materials that we've switched to. So we've got, we're going to do the cedar board painted. We were able to, prior to the last meeting, we had not pulled any of the original vinyl siding off to see what was underneath it. The original house was actually this color scheme here, which is the blue with the white trim. And so the property owner, once we discovered that, it was kind of a no-brainer just to kind of stick with that color scheme. I think it looks really good, fits to, you know, the historical. We scraped a little bit of the paint off to see if there was, you know, multiple colors or if it had been changed, and everything, all of our investigations seem to show that it has been some shade of that blue for quite a while. So we're going to do repairs. A lot of the siding that's there looked really, really good. There's a little bit of repair here and there on the typical hot spots, you know, eaves and down near the bottom and a couple of the windows. But we're going to do kind of an as needed repair with the original cedar boards. And then obviously cleaning up, scraping down, and repainting the house all together. The trim colors that were selected and main colors are listed on that page as well at the top right. We're going with Anderson smooth finish on the door. The windows, we're doing the Anderson E series, which I believe is also the fiberglass exterior. They have a fiberglass and an aluminum. Again, kind of availability, but we kind of luck out. We can go with the white windows due to the trim being white as well on the original. And then from there, do you have any questions on that so far, or do you want me to continue?
Howard, go ahead and do your full presentation and then come back for questions afterwards.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just don't want to keep going if you guys have something right away. So these are the existing conditions on the next page. I realized this morning that I did not include any of the pictures that we took of the siding. We did take we didn't take all the siding off yet, but testing hot spots and looking at it. Would you guys want to see pictures of the existing, of the wood siding in its current condition? I think we could probably I could even pull something up if you needed it.
I think if your intention is to restore as much as possible, and I don't think we need to do that. If you were going to try to say you want to take it all off, something else over it, then we might want to some more detail. Yeah,
after our last discussion in the last meeting, we definitely see the benefit of making sure that the house goes back to something that it was originally intended. Very similar posts. The front newel post there with the address on it is not very secure, so we're hoping that we can save the outer shell and do a new, basically treat it as a sleeve, get something more secure. But there's been some significant attempts at repair on that railing. So the railing is going to get replaced. And we'll use a very similar spindle and, top rail, bottom rail. On the next page, kind of gives a little bit of a detail. I saw in your one of the last presentations, you just want to kind of know that we know some of the precautions and some of the things that we're going to be doing during those repairs. If you scroll down, I believe it's if you keep going, there's a page that shows the elevations. This page here, if you look at the bottom left and the bottom right, I don't remember who requested, but you requested to kind of see the difference between where existing openings are and where we're moving openings to. There's not a significant difference on this. If you look at the east elevation, you've got 3 openings that are getting modified. The 4th opening is basically getting replaced, but I wanted to show that that was the original opening for that double window. So we are shifting one to a door, one's getting shortened and one's getting eliminated altogether. On the west elevation, we're basically just shortening one that's going to be in the laundry area so we can put a countertop underneath it. And then the last page is just simply showing the site plan.
Thank you, Ben. Before committee members go, I'd just like to give Alex Frondor, committee members, written comment. It was just concerning the shingle shape at the top of the front elevation. I did not think that was a historically accurate material to use, and if possible, to use the historic height of the railing as opposed to the port railing as it's grandfathered in. And then he had a question if you're replacing any of the windows in the house.
Yeah, we're replacing all of the windows in the house.
Okay, well, I don't know if I maybe missed your part of the presentation. What would the material and choice be? Maybe I missed that.
If you look on what I believe is page 3, it lists all of the materials and colors that we selected. The windows are Anderson E series, and they're white.
Okay, thank you. Committee members?
I can start. Ben, thank you so much for taking all of our comments and considerations from your last presentation and pretty much integrating almost all of them. Really appreciate that. I've walked past the house a bunch of times on my dog walks while you guys have been unearthing the siding, and I'm very happy to hear that you're going to restore what you can and replace one for one as needed, because it looks like it's actually in great shape.
A lot of it has been.
Well, sometimes the perk of having the vinyl over it is it protected it for all those years. I agree with Alex. I would prefer just lap siding all the way up into that gable peak. I don't think you need the shingles. Okay. I think it's not necessary. My only other, I'm fine with the window changes. I'm fine with the dormer. My only thing that I think I would want to probably have my approval contingent on is the commitment to really salvage and reinstall those porch elements as much as possible, and or replacing one for one. Your porch elements are really the only remaining original material on the exterior, and they're very beautiful and unique. And I know it seems silly, it's just these little porch elements, but that's really all we have left on this particular project. And like the spindle shape, that's a pretty solid spindle. So I would say if you can commit to, I'm guessing a lot of those individual pieces can be salvaged. Like you can rebuild that bottom rail and the top rail and reinstall the spindles. But I would like commitment to retaining and or one for one replacement of those porch elements.
I do believe that's the intent. I do believe that's the intention. The real rebuilding, if you will, is that the craftsmanship of when they were replaced or repaired, they were essentially cut short. And so there's some really weird scabbing that was done for top rail and bottom rail. And just it really, those will have to be replaced, the top and bottom rail, which are not a difficult profile to replace. And I don't even know, there may be a few spindles floating around in there. If we've got to, there's a few that are missing, but I also don't know if we can't spread those out slightly.
I think
to meet code and be able to kind of fill in those gaps.
You absolutely could take that approach if you could still meet code. I also have in the past or with client projects, like taken the concentration of the original material and the most visible runs of the porch. And then if you have to find something where you can't get an exact one for one, use like, you know, that short return that's right up against the neighbor, right, for example. Right. And then do the replica there and just concentrate the original material, you know, as you're reconstructing and prioritize it in that way. But otherwise sounds good to me.
All right, I have a couple of things. Alex was talking about, just using lap siding all the way up, and I presume he was talking about the fishtail siding up in the gable end, but it looks like that's existing. So I'm confused why, if it's existing, why would we ask him to take it off?
Doug, the one you're seeing in the existing is the neighboring house. So the next door neighbor.
Okay, that's why I was confused. All right, and
the fish scale is at the top of the gable on our house.
Oh, it is. It is up in the gable.
Ben, are you proposing
vinyl though, right?
Existing, or replace?
Yeah, it is vinyl though. Yes, it is something that was done that is on the surface. We haven't gotten up there. We don't know what's behind it, but understanding that if we do find a treatment of some kind that appears to be original to the house, we would restore it as best we can and to keep that original look and feel of the home.
Okay, well, that's the right thing to do, is try to be authentic and
yes,
keeping the design, whatever the original design was, wherever you can. So I guess we're okay with that. But if you do have that, a scallop siding up there, it looks like, and I didn't see on here, I'm sorry, I didn't see what color you were proposing, but this looks like a natural wood color stain or something, which I don't think would be right for it. I think it should be painted a color.
We can maintain the same color. We can maintain the same color and go up.
Yeah, that would be fine. Or if you get other colors, get something that's sympathetic to the body of the house. So two more things. One is the white windows. There are obviously white windows in here, but that would not be authentic to the period of this house. The trim being white is okay, but the windows are usually a darker color. So if you could, find the windows in a darker color, that's again sympathetic to the body of the house color, that would be an improvement. And then you talked about the front door, but you didn't show a picture of a catalog cut of what you're proposing the door to look like. Is it a 6-panel design or something, or an 8-panel design? Or
you know what? I did not include that picture. I have that in an email of what that is. I'll let Jerry, if you want to chime in, do you remember is that a plain door or did you have a window in it? Jerry, I don't know if you're unmuted.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm here. I'm not sure. I don't recall. How about if we get something and send it over to them?
Okay, if I can look through here, I can actually pull up the estimate that you got for your doors to be able to find out what.
Mr. Chair, may I suggest that be just a condition when this goes to the Landmarks Commission that they included in their final presentation?
Yes, I agree with that. We can let the Landmarks Commission be the judge of that, but have that stuff ready.
Sorry?
For next
you need to do the drafting?
Yes, I'll be doing a drafting.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know they're gonna serve lunch.
I'm sorry, I'm about to be in another meeting in the same room. Okay, yeah, I mean, according to the quote that he had already received, It's there's no window in it. It's a 6-panel typical door.
So it's a 6-panel design.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then that's fine. And are there any other questions from or comments from committee members before we ask for a motion?
I'm good. My comments were already.
All right, then would
nothing.
Someone care to make a motion?
I can make a motion. Are we doing approve as presented, or do we need to put it in a condition for the door still? I guess with the condition of having an image of the door in the presentation to Landmarks.
Yes, I think that's a good thing to add. And since this doesn't address the scallop siding up in the gable end, I think we want to make sure that the Landmarks Commission is aware that, you know, I'm sure the presenter will say so at the meeting, but, you know, I think we should mention that as well, that we want the owner to investigate what's actually up there behind the current vinyl.
We can definitely do that. It's, you know, once we get the scaffolding and stuff properly staged, we'll be pulling that off and evaluating that at the same time.
And I think, I guess maybe part of the motion would be investigate, and if there is no salvageable material underneath the vinyl, to simply consider or continue the same colored lap siding up to the gables.
Agreed.
I think we also wanted to add Nia's comments about the porch railing as well.
So I put the, you know.
Nate, do you have all that, or do we need to say it all again?
Yeah, so the motion is to conditional approval upon the 6-panel door being included, the investigation of the gable material, and the railing being salvaged as much as possible. Front porch railing. There was no second, so can somebody give it a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
All right, Nate, call the roll, please.
Doug Hall. Doug, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay. Marika Clark.
Yes.
And Tony Marinucci.
Yes.
And Chris Loder.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Our next applicant is 4604 Clinton Avenue. This is here for final approval, as previously seen by the committee. I believe Chris Root is here to speak to this. Chris, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yes, how's everybody doing? Essentially, this is a remodel of 4604 Clinton Avenue. If you want to go to the next slide. We've made some significant changes to what the initial design intent was with the house and with the site as well. If you go down, you can see the existing conditions. There is essentially vinyl siding that is over existing original 4-inch lap siding. You will also notice that there is a driveway that exists off the right-hand side of the house looking north. If you want to go to the site plan, we made some pretty significant changes in terms of the feedback we received. Number one, the new garage that we were proposing off of the side of the house is no longer happening. That was one of the main points of contention during our previous meeting. So you can see it's essentially restoration of the existing 3-story house, driveway to the side, the curb cut is to remain. And then you'll also notice that there's essentially 2 parcels. And one of the previous discussion points was in terms of parking, in terms of what would happen with those parcels, whether or not they would be consolidated or not. The intent is that this would be maintained as two different parcels. If you want to go to the next slide. And you can see from here the reconfiguration of the floor plans of the house as is, removal of the garage. And then if you want to go to the elevations, one of the other points of contention that we wanted to address was the double gable at the third floor on the elevation, on the front elevation. We'd initially proposed a single gable. We are changing that back to a double gable. We've also adjusted the materiality. And in lieu of doing a walkout deck on the third floor of the house, we're proposing a gable on that third floor to maximize that space. And you'll also notice materiality changes in terms of color and in terms of there's a bump out that happens. We initially proposed a different color for that. We now want to match color to the main house. And again, essentially, this is going to be restoring the original 4-inch lap siding that exists underneath that vinyl.
Thank you, Chris. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Great. I just had one written comment from Alex Frondor, who is not here today, but is on the committee. He appreciates that you're maintaining the dormers on the front of the gable. Appreciates the garage being removed. Still would like to see vehicular access come from the alley, as this is the only curb cut on Clinton existing. And then to the historic height of the railings to be matched as is possible, and the front door maybe being reconsidered as it may not be historically appropriate. Other than that, committee members, any comments you have?
I can start again. Also, thank you, Chris, for taking so much of our comments last time into consideration and integrating. really appreciate it. I think a lot of this looks great. I also echo Alex. I understand that we have an already 2 parcel situation here. If your client would be at all amenable to looking at what's happening next door, I think that site plan configuration is really successful in being authentic in providing 2 for-sale units. The front one just sold for almost $800,000. So there's clearly value there. And they were able to do a shared driveway off the alley that would feed both of them for an attached garage situation, which is definitely of value and kind of where you guys had started with your side garage. So I would still really heavily encourage your client to perhaps consider that versus the 2 kind of stuck in townhomes. I think that there's potential for the yield on that pro forma to yield 2 very, very well priced valuable units over kind of cramming in 2. That would be my very strong preference recommendation. On the house itself, is this for final or conceptual?
Final.
Okay. Did you include specifics on the windows and doors?
No, essentially it would be aluminum clad wood windows to be replaced in kind. If you want the addition of a materials sheet, we can certainly do that. Yeah.
I think if you are moving along to Landmarks, I would love to have it contingent on the specific material information for the windows and for the front door in particular. I think obviously great on restoring the cladding, maintaining the dormer. I don't have opposition to the proposed dormer. The only other thing is that I also think we're lacking here is paint color selection and window color, like all the materiality. My first preference is
we can certainly,
my first preference would
that.
would be to come back to this committee with those items. I'm not sure where you stand in the process or if you or your client would be agreeable to that, but that would be my first choice.
Okay.
I also would encourage, and you'll probably hear this from the Landmarks Commission themselves, not gray. They are not agreeable to gray, and it's a big house that could handle a really handsome color scheme if you were open to exploring that more.
Okay.
I believe Carl Brunges from Landmarks Commission has his hand raised. Carl, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, Chris, Jessica of our staff would be happy to work with you on appropriate color schemes for the house. I think that would be right in her wheelhouse.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, that's great. I agree with all of the comments from Alex and Antonia. And I guess regarding coming back to see us, I think, you know, it would be my preference too that there's enough holes in the in the presentation here. It would be nice to see this again, but you certainly have the right to go visit that goes directly to Landmarks. And if you're in a hurry, I don't want to hold you up excessively. But you know, the front door in particular is an important element of the appearance, and as Alex pointed out, I don't think that's the right front door for this house. And also, as Marika mentioned, or Antonia mentioned, the gray color scheme should be reconsidered. I think with all that in mind, if you'd be willing to come back, I think that would be general consensus, unless you disagree, Chris or Marika.
Carl Brunges also has his hand raised again. So, Carl, go ahead.
I'm just going to offer this. This would not be able to be put on an agenda until October 27th. So there is time to come back to this committee on the 20th if you want to go ahead and add those additional items. So you do have time, so there isn't that much of a rush. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. I think that then what we want to do is propose tabling this until they come back. So we need to know that the applicant is okay with that, so we can propose tabling it. Are you okay with that?
We would propose moving to Landmarks contingent upon making the adjustments that you have suggested. There's no reason why we can't make the adjustments, get it to you guys, and proceed with going to Landmarks. It's essentially a timeline issue at this point. So
all right, well, that's your right to decide to do it that way, and then so we will, if anyone wants to make a motion to.
Wait, I have a.
I have a couple of comments I'd like to make first.
Sure.
Sure.
I just wanted, and again, I think this could be just conditions for moving forward to Landmarks. I would like to understand a little bit better what the plan is for the rest of the site landscaping, particularly what is the plan around the current site fence that faces the street, as well as
the site fence will be removed. If you go back to the site plan, sorry, if you want to scroll up, that fence in front will be removed.
Okay.
There will be grass and obviously the driveway, and then we're proposing adding arborvitae in the back, along with the patio and the grass back there.
Okay.
So that current, if you scroll up a couple more slides, that entire fence that you see, I'm sorry, one more slide down. That entire chain link fence you see will be removed.
Okay, got it.
And then also that the wood slat privacy fence that happens off the side of the house, that'll be removed as well.
Okay, got it. And then I'm just trying to make sure I understand. I'm assuming for just the railing along the stairway down from the front door, does it just continue the lines of the railing? It's just hard to see in the drawings. So I think if there's a way to kind of show that more clearly.
Yeah, we could certainly clarify that. Yes.
Okay. And then lastly, I think I would just personally love to see something a little different than that kind of lattice that is shown covering the basement level, or is that just existing to remain, or that's shown on the front side? I'm just wondering if
that's new to be replaced. We could certainly do something different there.
Maybe there could be plantings or something. I don't know. I feel like there could be something a little more elegant there for a solution to that.
Chris, to piggyback off Marika's questions, is the railing on the front porch to be replaced, or is it to be restored or
replaced? Existing? Replaced to match existing.
The one, okay, the one that's there, it's a little hard to see, but it feels quite different.
Not quite there.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by what that design.
Yeah, I actually, the more we get into like this, I do think that it is in the best interest, or I think to be able to move forward with approval, I would want to see a little bit more detail on some of these elements, like the porch columns, the porch railing. I agree, potentially just a vertical board lattice instead of the cross lattice would be more historically appropriate. But I think that there's just a lack of detail, especially on this primary facade.
And Chris, it sounds like if I understand what Carl's saying, is that you, just because of the timing, you would be able to come back, present again to this body, and still be able to make the same landmarks meeting that you would have
the next landmarks.
Right, exactly. So I don't think that would actually delay your timing. It would mean adding an additional meeting for you, but I don't think it would actually change theoretically the timeline.
Okay.
If you're amenable to that.
Is that okay with you, Carl? Can you go ahead and put them on the agenda for the 27th and still have them come back here?
Yeah, that's what was my intent, because.
So that would be October 20th and then October 27th for landmarks?
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, it doesn't change your timeline at all.
That's great. Thanks, Carl. So I think to give you a concise list of what we're looking for, detail on the porch columns and spindles and the stair railings, window details, front door detail, specification, potentially different paint palette, and what was the other thing? Shoot, I'm short circuiting. Was there one more thing?
Product images on windows potentially.
Yeah, product images on those items. Is that it?
And I think we want to add something about recommendations to revisit the site plan with the driveway and so forth, and what's proposed for the rear units. And I guess I wanted to also ask in that regard, have you already applied for lot split?
A lot split is not applicable here. It's already two different lots. It exists as two different properties.
Oh, it already is in that.
Yes. Yeah, it's already two different parcels.
So if you were to try to rearrange this to have the driveway coming off the alley instead of the front, then you'd have to incorporate an easement or something like that to accomplish what you're going to do in the back.
Correct. That's an entire different hornet's nest that would have to happen in terms of consolidation and everything else. The client wants to keep the two separate lots.
But if you do two units back there, would they be fee simple? Would they then be splitting that back lot into two? Or would they be sharing that lot somehow?
It would be sharing the back lot, essentially.
Okay, so he's not proposing any additional lot split?
No.
Okay. All
Chris,
right, then
I think one
we
other point, just as my comment around the site plan, I just would love to see a teeny bit more detail. There's like some strange borders happening around the planting beds and things like that in the front. So even if it's just like something very simple, I think that would be helpful to see.
Okay.
Yes, and along that line, to add a notation about removing the chain link fence, so that that's clarified.
Certainly.
All right, so where that leaves us is, he's going to come back to us in 2 weeks, so we don't need to make a motion. And is that correct, Nate or Carl?
You should make a motion to table if the applicant is willing to allow it.
And Chris, we will reach out, and staff will talk with you through some of the stuff and assist in some of the suggestions from the committee as well.
Okay, perfect.
All right, then would someone care to propose a motion to table this?
I can move to table until next sign review meeting.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Nate, please call the roll.
Okay, the motion is to table. Doug Wall.
Yes.
Marika Clark.
Yes.
Chris Lozier.
Yes.
And Tony Marinucci.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chris. Nate, let's call the next item.
Okay. 1 second here. Okay, so our next item is at 4211 Franklin Boulevard. This is a conceptual review for a new addition, and I believe Tyler Rice is here to speak to this. Tyler, take it away.
Good afternoon. Tyler Rice, architect, TWR Architecture. We're here today to present an addition to 4211 Franklin Boulevard. The addition is approximately 25 by 30 feet on the western elevation side of the property. This property is actually 2 separate parcels. The owner is proposing to put this addition to that western side on the existing parcel that the house sits on, and then the other parcel would sort of remain as is for the future pool and sort of landscaping that would all sort of stay the same. So next slide, if you could, please. Just the ground floor plan showing the existing house with the new addition on that back corner with the family room and the covered deck. Next slide. Second floor is just a master bathroom with a rooftop deck that extends from the new addition across the existing low slope roof on the back of the house. These are the proposed elevations for the addition. Some of the things to note on the front elevation in the bottom right-hand corner, what we did was we added windows and a glass door on the first floor, and as well as used some reflective or more glossy Nichiha panel system in that area. We wanted to offset the new addition from the existing house so that the two could really stand separate from each other, so that they're not competing. The addition isn't changing the aesthetics of the existing house. Next slide. These are just some proposed renderings, 3D from the corner of the house and front and the rear. And then the next slide has material selections that we have, including, you can see the high gloss black panels. We're proposing black windows. A tongue and groove wood siding is an accent in a few areas that has a stained finish on it. And then a wood fencing privacy screen wall around the front and the sides.
Thank you, Tyler. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just one comment from Alex Frondor on this. He does not have a problem with the modern addition to a historic structure, just that he believes it should not dominate the historic structure, so it should be detached in some capacity and leave more room between the existing and the new addition.
Okay.
Well, I would agree with that in that the thing that really bothers me is the second floor with that, you know, board and batten modern siding, I think does compete with the historic house. I appreciate that you have, you know, tried to set it apart with a little recessed notch, you know, where it meets the house. But I think if we weren't so extreme in this siding proposal, the volume could work a little bit better. But and again, particularly that mass on the second floor really bothers me, and it wouldn't bother me as much if you had a more traditional siding program for it and that. But that's the essence of what I'm okay with the first floor because it's going to it just doesn't stand out, but it goes up, you know, to the roof line of the existing house or above it, you know, on the one end anyway, and that really disturbs me. But other than that, I think you've done a nice job of, you know, planning this and integrating it. Oh, and one more thing about, you know, if he's not going to consolidate the lot, then you're going to have a setback issue on the side yard because it looks like you're building right up to the property line.
Yeah, we're very close to it, so we would have to address that as far as a consolidation or adjust the setback there as far as pulling the building in, perhaps. We're still kind of working through that with the owner.
I'll go next. I do agree with my colleagues that right in the current form, it is to me very dominating to the historic structure rather than deferential. You kind of have like the unfortunate, like the positive of this property is also the negative from a design standpoint, and that you have a ton of visibility and you have multiple primary facades. There's no kind of way to kind of subtly tuck an addition into this scenario. I agree with Doug that party panel with aluminum trim application is not my favorite. That said, I would love for your clients to be able to have what looks like a very cool modern party pad situation. I think that this might be one, if they were agreeable, that could potentially be a lot more successful as a separate kind of pool house or a separate situation, and or physically more removed from the historic structure with like maybe a very kind of extending that sort of breezeway connector that you kind of have indicated. In its current form, it's just too over dominating. I think the physical closeness of it adds to that. I'm trying to kind of balance, or even perhaps an addition that is very historically sensitive and in line with the historic architecture of the Italianate, and then the more modern addition a little bit more defined. I don't know. It's just, for me, it's just not, I hope that was eloquent enough. It's just not, it's not, there's an incompatibility happening here for me that is over dominating.
So more of a transition between the two is really sort of needed, and whether that's maybe additional maybe windows or pulling it a little bit further away and kind of softening between the two. Is that kind of what you're kind of thinking?
Yeah, I think I mean, obviously you are, you know, I can't tell you what
Sure.
to do with it. I think that there's just, like, I think that rendering number 2 and rendering number 4 kind of illustrate to me how it feels over dominating. It's just intersecting, it's just wedging straight up against that historic facade. Whereas perspective number one, I really, I think that side looks could be really cool, but that's kind of like the internal rear portion. It's how it's intersecting with the existing house that I think needs more work. And I do think that adding windows or perhaps revisiting that material. We're just you're in a difficult, it's a difficult spot, right? We are checking certainly some of the boxes for requirements for additions in the historic district, but I think that in other ways it's falling short, and that's where I'm struggling. You're definitely hitting the distinctly modern addition and not folk historic. I'm certainly hitting that one. I think you need a little bit more work on the other points.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can add to Nia's comments, I agree with everything that Nia has said, as well as Alex and others. I think what I would maybe suggest is looking at the materials palette and maybe simplifying that a little bit. There's a lot of different materials that are being shown that maybe if you sort of to rein those in or strip those back a little bit, it might help with making it a little bit more cohesive. And I think that, and I would agree also that I think the materials that are chosen currently add to the massiveness of the scale of how this feels, and maybe looking at materials or colors that make it feel a little bit lighter and a little bit less heavy, I think would help as well. And again, I'm not one to sort of dictate sort of design, but I think one of the things that I think is making it seem less compatible to the historic is if you go to the elevation 1 on page 4, I think, is the fact that the roof sort of cants back toward the historic house. While I think if that was maybe something that was flatter or maybe wasn't shaped in that particular way, might help it feel a little bit less massive and at odds with sort of the lines of the historic.
Okay.
Yes, I would say I agree with the other comments, and I just think that there's too much about that addition when you look at that elevation from the street and the renderings. I think it was 2 and 4, which show it from those 2 points of view. It competes too much, and I would think about exploring a flatter roof if you're going with this modern cubist thing, because that roof slope is entirely foreign to the existing house. Everything about it is foreign to the house, and I know you can't achieve. I don't think you can achieve your floor plan goal by pulling that farther away from the existing house. That's going to make for a more complicated space planning for your second floor addition and so forth. So I guess my best advice is to rethink that siding, at least on those 2 elevations, to something that's more transitional or more compatible with the historic house.
Okay.
Are there any additional comments or questions from the committee?
Seeing none, this is just a conceptual review today. So if the applicant feels they've received enough feedback to go on, and we can move on.
Yes, thank you. I will take this all into consideration, and I will meet with the clients and see what they have to say too.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.
Okay, so moving on. Our next applicant is 3929 Lorraine Avenue. This was seen once for approval, I believe, and it is now back for a final review. I figured you'd be sure to speak to this, so go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone. I will be presenting today. The last time it was Patrick, but he's not here today. I have Jim with me also, so if he might be able to answer some questions too. Okay, so if you move to the next slide, we can see, so the committee requested some more historical information at the last meeting. So we did some more digging, and finally we could come up with some historical photos from the previous owner, so the funeral home owner himself, and also found some historical maps. Sorry, I did not circle the building, but so on the historical maps, you can kind of locate the building, I hope, from the recent aerial image. It shows that it was originally a building with two separate storefronts. This is also what I heard from the previous owner, with a staircase in the middle leading up to the first or to the second floor. This is very typical on that street, and I guess another places in Cleveland too. So the first two maps show that footprint, and the third footprint shows an addition. And so that was already there in 1912. Mr. Bodnar purchased the building in the 20s to open the funeral home, and he commissioned an architect in 1933 to consolidate the two storefronts into one facade, basically with one entry, and also give it a more modern look, which you can see on the blueprint and also on the photo. He succeeded. Mr. Bodnar Jr. Told me that this architect was ahead of his time, so it wasn't very popular then, but I think by now we can see that he was a very forward-thinking architect. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see, like the first photo on the left shows when they were working on the wood siding on the sides of the building. I don't know the exact date for that. This happened sometime in the second part of the 20th century. So obviously not original or anything. And the photo in the middle shows there was a car crashed into the building. And this is why we see on the last photo and on the current situation is that the marble is very mismatching on the front facade. So we would like to go ahead and correct that too. So the building has the typical Art Deco features, its proportions, the contrast between the wainscoting and the rest of the facade. There's a vertical blade sign. If you scroll up a little bit again, the photo shows the vertical blade sign. That was the sign for Bodnar Funeral Home in the beginning. It had some copper details on the door, which is also quite typical, and some ornamental elements under the windows. Well, around the entry that was more specific to the funeral home. I think, I'm not sure. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, please. This is what we propose. As you can see, it's more, we moved away from the first, keeping the large canopy and adding more like industrial looking details to it. So we would like to respect the Art Deco because we feel, and you also mentioned last time that it is the age or the style that we should go with. This is the most important of its history, we think. And this is the most distinctive feature of the building too. So we would like to go with that. What we propose is to remove the marble wainscoting and replace it with, it shows black slate large format tiles. So we don't know the exact material yet. So it's, but it has to be dark black, hopefully. And then we would keep the blonde brick facade. We would just clean we propose to clean it and repair as needed. Also, clean and repair the steel ornaments and the ornaments around the entry or the entrance. We would remove those, but the owner wants to showcase them inside in the interior at some point. Also, we propose a vertical sign, although signage is not included in this presentation. We just want to show the location of it. We discussed on the last meeting. One member said, the committee member said that vertical lettering is not favorable, but as we looked into a Cleveland Art Deco or Art Deco facades in general, vertical blade sign is very, very typical. You just have to look at the Greyhound building. So this is, I think, or we think that this would be a feature to keep of the new facade. As mentioned on the last meeting, we proposed to remove the canopy on the side and the wood siding too, and just repair and paint the existing brick white again. I mean, it's white now, so it would not be a change really. For the canopy, actually, its size and positioning and even the color, you can see an example on the other side of the street. If you scroll down a little bit on the bottom of this page, you can see right across the street, there's a new building with a very similar shaped canopy. We would like to add ornaments. I mean, if you zoom in on one of the renderings or 3D views, you can probably see the ornaments. I don't know if you could zoom in on the left one maybe. We propose some black colored ornamental details around the canopy to make it stand out a little bit. It would be some Art Deco looking, mostly black, but with subtle brass elements, also brass elements on the door. This here you can see that too. Yes, I think we could, yeah, you can see the material schedule. So it's mainly brass with black details. We would be proposed to change the windows and the door on the front facade to black, metal frame, probably metal frame windows. Yeah, I mentioned the wainscoting. And this is the site plan that we propose. So that was a big issue on the last meeting, how parking could be solved here because it is needed. It's not a walk-in type of business. It's mostly by appointment only. So it's not like people will be, or cars will be coming and going all the time. So we propose to add the gate, like a sliding gate to the street property line, and it could include lights or even a sound, like a warning sign that when it opens so pedestrians can see that there will be a car coming. There's a green curved area separating the pedestrian area from the parking lot. There's only 3 parking spots in the side lot, parking spots, and an ADA accessible parking spot in the back, which if it's not used, it could also serve as an additional turnaround area. So it is a tight parking lot, but if it's not a constant coming and going of cars, if it's not constantly used by several cars, it can really work. The client would like to use the backyard as an outdoor space. So we added a 4-foot high fence around that area, which also separates it from the parking lot. And also, I mean, I believe there's already a fence separating the lot from from the daycare center's lot, but in any case, we would add something if needed. Let me see. Yes. I mean, the last slide shows the floor plans. As we discussed, it gives a better idea about the use of the building, the proposed use, but it was discussed in the last meeting. So I don't know if I should go over that again. Yeah, so that's my presentations. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Far superior to the last time, and I think your historic research paid off here. That finding how this was originally modified in the 30s makes all the difference in the world, and removing that larger canopy makes sense, and substituting a smaller canopy. I think I have a question about the canopy. It looks like the canopy does have a slight pitch to it, so it drains back towards the building. Is that correct?
No, I think it's just maybe the positioning of the camera and everything. It's not. It does. I mean, it does not.
Doesn't pitch in any direction. It's just flat. Is that what you're saying?
It's flat, but I will ask Jim what he's.
The
water drainage. I don't know about water drainage, but it's not supposed to.
Well, does the canopy go back and actually hit the building along the facade, or is there a separation so it's kind of free floating from the building itself?
The canopy?
Yeah. All the way back to the building facade in the recessed entry.
It's going all the way back. Yeah. So I now understand the question. So it's going all the way back to the door. Basically, it's just like a storefront.
Okay.
Structure.
And then, so there's a solid panel of something where it meets the building, and then there's a glass transom above.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry if it's not very visible on these pictures, but yes, that would be a solid right meets the door.
Good. The last, I think it might be worth considering, based on how you can attach it, to actually not have it go back and hit the building. If you could leave 4 inches, it looks like that recess is substantial. You could leave a foot or something back there so it doesn't actually run into the building, since it's not an original feature. But I don't think that's not a huge point for me. And the last comment I have is about the slate tile that you're proposing. I know you said you haven't selected an exact one, but I don't think a cleft project like a slate tile, it has sometimes can have a fairly modeled surface. Is I would encourage you to go with something flatter, but I think the black is fine. I'm okay with the black, but I wouldn't try to get something that's too textured. I think smoother would be better, because it's more in keeping with the smooth marble that was originally intended.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with Doug on the slate tile. I'm not sure I'm totally convinced on that, and would prefer to see a specific material there. I would also like to see window and door details or cut sheets for that storefront. I don't know that it's clear if you're replacing windows on this front facade or if those are existing to be painted. But I would, yeah, I think we need the door and window details, which are consistent. Also, yes, thank you so much for taking our feedback. This is a really, really handsome improvement. So sorry, I meant to lead with that. I also would love to see the shop drawings or more details on that awning. Again, aesthetically, all of this I think is hitting it really well, but we just need detail for approval if we're going to be at all consistent with what we've asked for other applicants along the way. And the other note that I have is, I believe for better or worse for your client, my children go to the daycare behind this property. There is a 6-foot aluminum fence currently. I would love and very much ask that you maintain a 6-foot fence perimeter if needed to be replaced, and or if this is going to be used for tenants, like if you're going to be having guests of this facility coming out into that space, please put in a solid fence. We've had a lot of issues with the 41 apartments, tenants and users not behaving appropriately in full view of the children. And that is something really would prefer not to continue. That's been a very years-long discussion with them to try to help manage, but for everyone's sake, some visible physical separation between them and the kids, please, would be great.
Understood, yeah, okay.
And would you understand, I'm guessing that there's going to be a parking variance request in here because 4 spaces, yes. I'm sure is not technically, okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, I would ask one more thing. The fence along the front with the sliding gate, I think that we'd like to see a detail of what that fence is going to look like and the height of it also, to make sure you don't need a variance and that it again appears appropriate to the building.
Okay.
I know that the signage, the blade sign, isn't included as part of this sort of included in the scope of this particular project. But I think the intent is if when you do have a final design for that, that would come back across this committee at that point. I agree with all of my colleagues' comments so far, but when it does come to that blade sign, I might suggest that doing something that's the same sort of location and size and scale as what was there historically, I think lends itself to fitting in more with the sort of the what was there historically. I think feels a little bit better than maybe what's kind of shown there currently. But that's my only other comment, is just to consider that when you do move forward with the signage.
Okay. I mean, the position is similar, but you think it should be lower than, if I understand it right?
Yeah, I think lower.
Okay.
Committee members, any other comments or questions, or would somebody like to make a motion?
Is this for concept or final?
This would be for final.
I would, if the presenters are agreeable to tabling for us to be able to get more information on those. I feel personally that I need to see a lot more detail to those windows, door and awning and materiality on that slate prior to approval. I don't know if my colleagues agree, but that's how I feel.
And fence.
And fence. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, I think it would be helpful to show us a section through that canopy
yes.
to see specifically what you have in mind. This is a little vague.
Okay.
You would also have the same timeline as previously mentioned to be able to come back here on the 20th and potentially be on the Landmarks Commission agenda on the 27th.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. I can come back.
All right, then would someone care to make a motion to table?
Motion to table.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, Nate, call the roll, please.
Thank you. So the motion is to table to see more details on the sliding gate windows, cut sheets for the windows, canopy, the slate material, detailing. So the Doug Wall.
Aye.
Marika Clark.
I think Marika had to jump. Me.
Oh, okay. Antonio Marinucci.
Aye.
And Chris Logan.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Our last applicant today is the Vitrolite building at 2915 Detroit. I believe we will lose quorum for this, but you can still move forward with a recommendation to Landmarks. Antonia, you have to recuse yourself from this project, and we lost Marika. So we're down to 2 committee members, but again, that doesn't change timelines. It will simply be a recommendation.
Hi, Nate, just really quickly, because I actually have to go to another meeting as well. I think the applicants have actually included a lot of information of all their product information that was left. So I think we're going to be good for, on my side, for moving forward for this next meeting. I have them penciled in for next week. So just so you are all aware.
Okay, thank you, Carl.
Thanks.
Nate, did Alex have any written remarks about this you'd like to put on the record?
No, I'll let him go through the presentation. He just had one question.
Okay. Well, I guess I can start. Jonathan Kurtz. We are working with Anne Hartnett and Harness Collective to do what is primarily kind of a, Bill, can you, which is, I'm getting a lot of feedback, primarily a change of occupancy. And am I getting feedback from myself? Are you guys getting feedback? Okay, you're good. All right, I'm okay now. Sorry, it was like echoing in my ears. Primarily interior modifications to make it kind of a multi-tenant space, partially for harness cycling and also for a variety of other tenants. I think the main issues is obviously this is on the National Historic Register, and we've paid kind of close attention to that. And the alterations to the exterior are very minimal, and I think we have kind of 2 or 3 key topics that are kind of worth discussing or worth presenting to this group. On the bottom of this slide, you'll see the kind of rear elevation. The current overhead rolling door is just a kind of a utilitarian metal door. The proposal is to replace that with a glass framed metal garage door that matches as near as we can within the product information, the kind of horizontality of the existing windows, and also matching the finish of the existing windows. Also on that elevation, we're proposing modifying the entry door, which currently has a large ICA sign above it, to be a partial, essentially a glass door with stiles and rails at the perimeter. And in a way, just kind of returning that vertical volume to how it, I think, closer to how it was historically. And then there's a desire to treat the exposed brick with a Kime mineral stain. If you're familiar with that product, it's not a paint, it's an actual mineral product made for brick and masonry to color it and make it more uniform. There is on the left side, if you go to the next slide, well, this is front entry, which I want to come back to. I want to focus on one side. So this image on the left side, at one point in the history of this building, the brick on the left there was infilled. There was an opening. And so I think, partially just client preference and kind of updating, and also, I think to kind of mask some of that incongruence of the brick, to use this Kime mineral stain to give it kind of a white appearance. I suppose a little like a Bauhaus approach. And again, there you see the blue door that would be replaced with a fuller glass light, obviously, because a lot of entry and exit exists on this side of the building. So I think that's effectively the rear elevation. At the front elevation, the desire, one is to, if you go up one slide back to the existing front, yeah. So left largely original. The span of the glass is pretty extensive for, I think, for its time, 7 feet between these verticals. And as everything we've been able to discern so far, the glazing is frosted on the second layer, so the inside light of the glass. So that frosting that you see at the base is not an applied film. It's kind of integral to the glass. So there will be a cafe moving into that space, which expects street traffic and ideally a great deal of transparency and potentially even operability. So I think if you've gone through the submission, you've seen that, you know, we're kind of looking at it 2 ways. One is the frosting kind of, we feel has to go in order for the kind of, you know, the connectivity to the street that most of these buildings and this building originally exhibited. But in incurring the cost to do that, we were also interested in exploring the opportunity to make that facade somewhat operable. And the proposed product for that is a cowl wall, or not a cowl wall, a nano wall system that would slide. And if we go down maybe 2 slides, I'm going to come back to that part. Yeah, so this would be the front elevation. On the right is kind of the proposed, which is just, you know, glazing but unetched. Certainly interested in the opportunity to make that operable, and in exploring the nanowall systems. Nothing can give us both the thickness of the sightline and the operability. This nanowall system is all in line, so it doesn't have any deviation in plane, which we thought was important. It also allows us to keep that horizontal. Other systems, you can't introduce the horizontal into the operability. And so, you know, I think this is kind of what we're considering, I guess, up for discussion and or our proposal for the operability of that, to allow all of these panels to kind of slide to the side so that the cafe can open to the street more frequently, or at all. And then I guess the fourth component of this is on the side elevation. If you go up 1 slide, which originally was glass, had been infilled with CMU, and long-term, we're not sure if it's part of this initial project, but we wanted to include that as part of this review, which is just to reintroduce the glass along that facade in keeping with the existing character, or not existing, but the original character of the building. So if you scroll down to the next slide, yeah, sorry, I'll just talk through these as we go. So this is the proposed sliding system. You can see a fairly thin profile and kind of gets out of the way. Next slide. This is that side elevation, along with a little bit of a view of the Keim silicate brick glazing or treatment, but the glazing just kind of trying to maintain the horizontal datums that are established by the original building. 1 more slide down. That's just literature on the Keim. This is the glazing that we're proposing for that kind of tucked away side area. Just a basic storefront, but, you know, thin sight lines to match others, and continue scrolling down. An example of the door, though not the same proportions as shown in the drawings. Scroll down. And I think that's it. I'll stop there. Sorry, it was a little bit all over the place.
Thank you. Alex Fondorf, who couldn't be here today, just had one question, not really relating to design, but wanted to know about the it would be the east elevation, I believe. You know, all that the windows that are being added. Just want to know if you've talked with the neighboring businesses about what that means.
Yeah, so Anne, I don't know if you're there, you could speak to that, but I do know that Anne, the building owner, has had discussions with her neighbors, and Anne, maybe you can just fill in on that.
Hi, yeah, this is Anne Hartnett. I have not. I wanted to wait until we had this presentation to see if it was going to be approved. I am also one of the tenants of the neighboring building, and Marika and Graham are the owners of that building. I've had conversations with Graham, particularly about the Streibinger building and having the windows looking onto the patio, which they felt comfortable with, but wanted to get through this process first. So to answer your question, some conversations have happened, but not with the entire group. But that, you know, that courtyard really acts as primarily an activated extension of Jukebox. So I think Alex is probably the most important because it's really back of house and just service for the other tenants of the Streibinger building.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions or comments?
Yes, regarding the fenestration on the front of the building and switching to the NanoWall product, I'm wondering if the proportions of the fenestration that's there now, there's any resemblance to the original. Do we know, did you do any research to know what, if that's always looked that way or similar to it?
Yeah, and I can share, we didn't submit it with this, but there is a document that's with the National Historic Register. What's interesting is in that document, on the original publication of the front facade of this building, there was actually only a single center mullion. So the glass was, I think, much more ambitious for 1920, 29. We have not found any photographs and that National Register report, which I can follow up with, or I can pull it up if anybody would like. I do have it on my screen if you want to let me share a screen real quick. I don't know if that's allowable.
Well,
I don't believe in that capability, but you can always send it afterwards.
Yeah, I can send it, but yeah, so as near as we can tell, the existing fenestration is as old as the photographic evidence, although there is some rendering evidence that shows it a little differently. And I think one thing to note on the proposal for the operability is just the 7-foot width. We have not found a system apart from, you know, highly customized, maybe cost prohibitive systems that would allow the full 7-foot width and the operability. So you see a slightly different pattern if you scroll up and go to the existing and new elevations. Yeah, there. So you'll see, you know, this is still a fairly wide panel, about 5 feet, but none of the products that we've found available, again, apart from doing a fully custom installation of something, can maintain the glazing size and the operability. I think it's because of essentially when it's operable, there's the tempering and the tempering baths and the laminating. So I'm sure Apple can do it, but maybe we can't.
So this, from the elevation here, it looks like these, if they are sliding panels, they're all going to stack to one side. Is that what you think it's going to work?
That is the intent and the way the system works presently. There are a couple different options, but we thought that that was the cleanest also in terms of the entry to the left on this elevation is where you'll enter that cafe. And in terms of the layout of the cafe and everything, it felt the cleanest to stack them all to the side. I will say there's another product that would allow us to do somewhat similar things, but it's multi-track. And so then all of those glazing panels would be in a different plane. And we feel that that's more disruptive to the historic character than the kind of stacking. So.
Yes, I would agree completely with that. I think in the closed position, they need to be flush, you know, to make it look right. And so I don't have a problem with that. You're not going to do anything with the bulkhead. You don't have to disturb the bulkhead in any way to do this.
No, we will need internally. We'll have a horizontal that NanoWall uses to support at that kind of intermediate location. You know, I think it would be perhaps more cost effective to not have the horizontal. If the committee thought that, you know, going full vertical was an option, but I guess, you know, we were trying to kind of cover our bases and try to maintain to some extent the clear story and the glazing as it is. So there will be some internal steel, but nothing externally needing to be modified.
Good. I also think that the maintaining that transom rail is important, even though, you know, it may not have been original. It's, you know, the fenestration that's there now has been there a long while and it looks good. And so maintaining that proportion, like the transom rail going across, I think is good. I have no problem with any of the other stuff. I like your treatment of the rear. I like your treatment of the side. Restoring the glass on the side, although I didn't look closely enough at your site plan. Are you going to need a Board of Building Standards case because you're maybe too close to the property line to put all that glass?
Yeah, there is a provision. I think we wanted to, as Ann had said, you know, partially we wanted to discuss it with Landmarks and the group. There are provisions. It's set back, so there's, I believe it's 6 feet from the property line, and the property currently is open, but there is either a variance and/or negotiating the amount of open area that we're permitted to have on that facade. So, but we wouldn't. I don't think we would change the design intent, and actually because the area above is fully glazed along that facade, I think that gives us, as we've looked into it, we should be able to achieve all of the glass along that edge. In fact, I think in our renovation in 2001, that was the intent, and they simply didn't do it because of for cost reasons. I think maybe one other thing to note is that there are skylights along that edge already that have been kind of boarded in. So those skylights let light down into the lower level. And so it would be kind of in keeping with that. And I guess from a historic standpoint, we're trying to keep in character with what the building provided originally.
Good. I guess one last question. It doesn't appear that you're proposing to replace any of the other windows on the building, the second floor windows that are existing, any of that stuff?
No, they're all in good shape, except for the one at the back that had to be pulled out so that ICA could get one piece of their equipment out. So that was taken out and put back in sometime a couple months ago. But yeah, I think all the other openings are in good condition.
Any other questions, comments from committee members? Those that are left?
Yeah, so hey, Jonathan,
Hey, Chris.
Good to see you. I just have I want to echo, you know, I think all of Doug's comments. You know, I don't have any issue, I think, with the rear, with the side, with the front. I do have a couple of questions though. One, and really sort of looking at the front elevation. The system that you're either system that you're suggesting, what's the frame color that you're proposing? Is it to match the sort of the greenish that's
Yeah.
there today?
Yeah, we're assuming a custom frame color to match. I don't see any reason. I don't, at least at present, we haven't, let me say, we haven't had extensive discussions with the client, but I think that's the initial intent.
Okay, yeah, I think it would be our recommendation that it would match the existing or the you know the windows that are to remain. So whatever that greenish color is, to keep it all consistent. Yeah, and I you know, I don't have any issue with either of the two proposed elevation window systems, either the fixed or the sliding panels. You know, again, going back to, we don't know what was there historically or originally, other than it was, you know, large, you know, openings. I think, you know, breaking it down into the 5 panel versus the 4, I don't see any issue with that. It actually, you know, mimics kind of what's above more so than the 4 larger panels. Yeah, other than that, I'm you know, I'm a resident of the neighborhood and excited to see more life in this building. I think ICA has been a great tenant over the many years that they've been in that location. But to see this, you know, transformed into a more contributing, you know, active member to the neighborhood, I think is really exciting.
Yeah,
so nothing else for me.
One thing that might be interesting of note, just to your point, Chris, is when I send in the National Historic Register, they do reference that the architectural intent was these 2 totems on the side and kind of a clear span in the middle. So I think it's always been in the spirit. It wasn't really about that glazing as a surface as much as it was this kind of what you read almost in this view of the elevation, which was kind of a bridge between 2 totems. So we're trying to stay consistent with that. So thank you.
Sort of comment on this. I don't know what your personal experience is with NanoWall, but I have used it several times, and my clients always complain about its unsuitability for our winter weather, that the weather seals are kind of problematic. So I would encourage you to, you know, do what you can to work through that issue.
Yeah, they can be. I do have some experience just at, I did a suite in the Progressive Field for the Cleveland, well, now Guardians, a number of years ago. A lot of ballparks use the NanoWall, and obviously that's a different kind of environment. It doesn't require the seals, but even at that time, they have different grades of systems. And it does get a little bit pricier in our climate to use that. But I think, you know, if we can, I would love to find even, you know, an alternative product that has the same. I don't know if this is how you guys work. If it's, you know, if you guys say, hey, it has to be that product, then fine. If it's, hey, we can find, you know, we're not going to go to Spain, but there's some other products around that have a similar system. But this was, at this point, the most available and consistent that we found.
Well, if you decide you want to select a different manufacturer system, I think as long as it doesn't radically change the profile of the frames, I think that, you know, is going to take care of it.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, which you already hit on, Jonathan, was keeping the, you know, the glass all in the same plane. I think is, you know, finding if it was an alternate system, that would be sort of the clarification recommendation on our end, was to maintain that.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. So
I guess we're not going to vote on this because we don't have a quorum. But as Carl pointed out, this can continue on to Landmark. So good luck.
So
Thank you.
Is that's a recommendation to approve? Then is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan.
Okay. Yeah, thank you both, all of you. Nia, nice to see you.
Doug, do you want to call the meeting to close?
All right. This concludes our agenda for today's Ohio City Design Review Committee, and this meeting is officially adjourned. And
nice work, guys.
I would like to thank everybody for their expeditious work. So even with one less, we finished just about in the allotted time. So that was pretty darn good.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah.
You did good.
Agreed.
All right, everyone. Thank you. And we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.